Let's get this party going.
Let's do it.
You good with that?
I am. We're ready to go. It's 12 noon. Let's go.
Yeah. So, hey, folks, I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm your LinkedIn strategist and trainer. Work for a company called Burriss Consulting, i.e., I work for my wife. I'm privileged and excited that I get to hang out with my buddy, Mr. Randy Wooden, every week. We are at week 40, I think, buddy.
Wow.
Week 40, yeah. And so it's a lot of fun for Randy and I to partner up and bring special guests. Every single one of our guests is a special guest, and bring them to have a conversation, share ideas that can help you. And in a few minutes, we'll introduce you to who our special guest is today. Hang tight, buddy. We're not going to ignore you. I'll be back to you in a minute. Randy, tell the good people who you are.
Randy Wooden, if you don't know me by now,
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I run Goodwill's Professional Center in Winston-Salem, Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. We were one of the Goodwills, if you hadn't seen it in the news. Remember Mackenzie Scott donated over $4 billion to a variety of companies. Our Goodwill was one of the, I think, 46 Goodwill recipients around the country. So we're very excited about that. And if, I'll tell you what, for people that wonder about Goodwill and what we do and how effective are we, the fact that that our Goodwill was selected as one of those 350 or so companies is really a testament to the work that we do. And so my program is just one small element of our Goodwill, but we're free. If you're watching or you know somebody that's in a job hunt, they might be a professional, degreed leadership kind of role, salary, that sort of thing. Reach out to us. We're free. Happy to help. This is the highlight of my week. Teddy, I said that last week. I say it again. I always enjoy it when we can bring in guests that can help educate, inform, and we can laugh and have some fun at the same time. It's a nice break from my week. And I think for a lot of folks who tune in live, it is for them too. And we always want to know where you're watching us from. So yeah. On the call today, then it says my microphone is not working that well. Is that?
I can hear you pretty decently myself, buddy.
All right.
You got that. Yeah, you're sounding decent to me.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this keyboard. We don't need this. We're a high budget operation. I'm going to move my little Yeti microphone right in front of me. We have Rich Schlentz on today, and Rich, I'll have you introduce yourself in more detail, but kind of cool. He is the CEO and founder, bear with me, the CEO and founder of Extraordinary Communication, but it's not Chief Executive Officer, it's Chief Enthusiasm Officer. And we're here to talk today about Thanks for the Push. So what does Thanks for the Push mean? And Rich, if you could, just go ahead and give us a quick overview of your background.
All right. Randy, when you and I were talking the other day, you mentioned the why. You asked me, why do you do this work? Which is a powerful question. Mm-hmm. And the answer is actually a quote from Khalil Gibran, who says, when we are born, our work is placed within our hearts. So the why to my work is that this is the work that is placed within my heart. And it takes a lot of effort to figure out what that work is. It takes years to discover that. And the work we do is really important and rarely urgent. So what I mean by that, with our corporate clients, we focus a lot on culture. Mm-hmm. And that's communicating more effectively within a culture. That is building a strong team dynamic, being more effective in leadership skills and tools, what might be coaching, delegation, et cetera. So the things that don't show up unless there's a pandemic, those are the things we work on. So great to be part of the team here today. And thank you guys for the work you do, that you're not dabbling with this. Anyone can have a show. But if you're going to have 40 shows, you're committed. And I admire that about you guys.
Yeah. And Teddy, you're going to monitor the chat box. So I always encourage folks, if you're watching us, and how many thousand, we have 40,000 people, including Malcolm. Malcolm has joined us.
Past guest.
You'll know Malcolm over there, right?
Malcolm.
But anyway, if you do have questions or a comment, and if you're so inclined, go ahead and put them in the chat box. Teddy's going to keep an eye on that. He's going to keep us straight, but I'll I'll ask some of the questions, but I have the feeling all we're going to do today, Rich, is I'm going to tee it up for you, and you're going to take it from here. And let me sort of set the stage a little bit. I think if we've lived long enough, we will lose a job. The company will go out of business. We'll be fired, laid off, right size, downsized, reduction in force, rift, whatever. Okay. At some point, if you live long enough, it's going to hit you, whether expected or not. The reality is, whether you wanted to leave or not, you're out. And you've been pushed out. So where do you go from there? And that's sort of what we're going to talk about. We're going to see and relate some of our, and again, this is for our audience, to relate from our background some of those times when that's happened, and how can we work through that process. We'll also talk about, is it natural to be optimistic? What are some things we can do ourselves to have a better outcome as we go through that process? So we've all been there. We'd like to hear some of your stories as well if you want to chat them in the chat box. So let's get started. Thanks for the push. So where did that come from anyway?
2002.
All right.
I got a call from our managing partner to attend an impromptu meeting.
I know where this is going.
Yeah. I said, sure. Not that I had another option. The meeting took 2 hours. And at the end, I was fired. And I was actually fired from a company that I owned a part of. And, so we could stop right here and say one of the obvious lessons going forward is own more. So that's a note. Put that down. Own more next time.
A little bit more.
Yeah. So, walking out, I felt like I had been punched in the face. And honestly, I saw it coming. I was not the first partner to have this impromptu conversation.
Yeah.
So I certainly had a sense that it might happen, and it still felt like a punch in the face. I was uncertain. I was hurt, and I was dazed. What I decided to do in light of that was to leverage what I had now that I hadn't had then, and that is space. In other words, I walked out of that meeting with newfound space. My calendar was all of a sudden open. And if this would happen maybe a dozen years earlier in my life, I probably would have handled it totally different. I could have run from it. I might have denied it. I might try to medicate it, whatever I would have done to those feelings, right? That our Western culture masculinity doesn't necessarily embrace, the feelings of my confidence is rattled. So I use the space to sit with those feelings, to approve those feelings, and to have really important conversations with others and myself. Conversations about where should I go? I have a new space, a new opportunity. What should I do? What do I love doing? What am I called to do? So I did that for a few months. And after some searching, a couple options came to the top. So one of those options was something I felt certain that I would enjoy. And it made a lot of sense from the standpoint that this option had a base salary, bonus opportunities, really nice benefit package, tech budget, had all that stuff. The other opportunity had none of that, none. No base salary, no benefits. I was an independent contractor, no tech budget. Only that option made me feel something. I imagined that I could love doing this work. So
Well,
after go ahead.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
You say that was the only one that you could imagine. What was it about that versus this safety and security? And because I've had clients say that's the very same thing. Maybe not right away. Maybe it worked out that way because they didn't get the job offer of that safety and security they thought they'd get. And then they held their nose and went for plan B, but plan B ended up so much better. What was it early on that triggered it and said, I want to go without a safety net?
Yeah. A couple things really important.
Yeah.
A couple phrases. One, plan Bs are overrated. Two, safety nets can be our worst enemy. Let's just, that might be another, we might need to come back for that conversation.
Okay.
So I was all in. I was all in what was, and here's the idea. How do we measure risk? Was it more risky from a pros and cons standpoint? Perhaps. But also living and doing work that is not our calling has a risk, right? There's a risk to that. There's a cost to that might not be tangible, and it's real. So the way I'm wired, I went with my heart. I'm heart centric, right? So I went with what I could imagine doing for the rest of my life, which, by the way, is the decision that led to this work right here today. There's a saying that meaning rarely follows money. Money often follows meaning. So I went after the work that I felt I had a talent for, and that spoke to my emotion, and figured out a way to earn a living in that. So it was doing work that again was helping people grow. It was intangible. I wasn't selling a product, never have sold a product, always sold a vision, a journey for people that they have to do the work to attain. Try selling that. Hey, why don't you write me a check so you can work your tail off for 20 years to get these results. So it was just knowing that it was the work that was placed within my heart, which made the risk less daunting.
What is it that you talk about that to follow what's in your heart? Was there a trigger? Was there something that the light bulb went off or on, or I guess is on, that said, yeah, this is where I need to be?
So part of that was reflecting on, okay, so I had worked 15, 20 years prior to this. And so my reflection was, what was I doing then that when I felt in the zone, right? Or what do I do? Or what's the thing I do where I would think to myself or say out loud, I do this for free, which the result of that is for years, I say, I can't believe I get paid to do this. I can't believe I get paid to do this. Doesn't mean I'm not going to send invoices anymore. I'm still sending invoices.
All right, I got you.
Wait, time out. I think Rich is clearly saying that because his co-partner is not is within earshot.
Oh yeah. One of my roles is sending invoices. So so I reflected, Randy. I reflected and took an inventory. What are the things that I was doing that really felt in the zone? And I was able to see they had to do with leading and guiding people through development journeys, right? Helping people get from here to there regarding their life trajectory, their work trajectory. Mm-hmm. And so what I did, that first role was teaching and selling Dale Carnegie courses, which gave me the skill set to eventually go out to create our own products. So I was teaching and selling Dale Carnegie professional development products. About 8 years later, we created our own product. We've been doing that since.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a website too that people can refer to. I want to mention it, and I think Teddy's going to put that in the notes as well. It's called reviveyourwork.com. So folks, if you'd like to learn more about what Rich is all about and some of the various services and such, we're going to also throw out some more information as we move through the show today. So you want to make sure you got a piece of paper and pencil handy. But reviveyourwork.com is the way to go. All right. So this push happened, and you said, this is where I need to be, but no revenue coming in right away. Right. And that's a big concern for a lot of people who say, I'd love to maybe kind of sort of pursue a dream, but I need to eat and that sort of thing. And so how did you work through that?
So, I put a plan together, a budget plan together that said if I could make this much, I could survive to this point. Right. And then got to work on seeing if that could, I could execute on that. And, during this journey, there's been a number of, my business has shifted over the last 20 years. And there's been times where the shift has caused a dip in skill set, learning something new, and also a dip in earnings and revenue. So, that's not the first time it's happened. And also let me say this, when it first happened, I didn't say thanks for the push. This is really important. This is an important piece of that journey, is that I sat with and validated real feelings that were, again, I was uncertain. I was scared. I was dazed. My confidence was rattled. I didn't deny those, and I didn't thank anyone for those. I did give myself permission to feel those. Here's where thank for the push came in. 10 years later, so 10 years later, I'm speaking at a small event, and the prior managing partner who had the 2-hour meeting, who fired me, was in the audience. And after the event, when the event finished, he came up to me and said, "Rich, that was great. That's what you should be doing. That's your work." And I said to him, "You know what? Thank you for the push." And there was an awkward moment. I could see he was wondering, like, is this real? Is this authentic, or is this a dig?
Sarcastic. Yeah, there's a little dig there. Yeah.
And so I spoke into that and said, no, this is, you helped me get here. You see, I would have held on longer. I needed your push to get here today. Thank you for that. So that was the thing that, so what it caused me to do was look into that. Okay, what's this journey? How do we go from push, which is labeled traumatic, could be labeled crisis, could be labeled disaster. How do we get from that label to this label of gratitude, which is authentically, thank you for the push? That's really what we want to talk about today, is not the change. There's an author, Michael Bridges, who says it's not the change that does us in, it's the transition.
Yeah.
It wasn't the firing that did me in. I mean, once that's done, it's not the merger that does you in. It's not the divorce that does you in. It's the transition. It's how do I get from here to there now? I'm not there. I'm not there, and I'm not here. So that's really what this story is about, how to navigate that transition from, wow, that hurt, man, that was difficult, to, I am so grateful for that. Thanks for the push.
So Joseph is asking a question, and might be a little bit beyond the scope of this discussion in some respect. He says, how do we help people to assess and overcome the fear of that push? And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, Joseph. How do we help people assess and overcome the fear of that push? Is that relevant, Rich?
Hey, Joseph, thanks for chiming in, man. So here's a thought on that. First of all, be okay with the fear. So again, male programming, Western male programming, for the longest time in my life, when I was afraid, I never spoke about it because I thought it was weak. Because that's the programming I received. If you're scared, you're weak. There was names for us. I finally reprogrammed that to figure out that, wait a second, fear is simply an indicator light, like on your dashboard. If your oil's low or your gas is, it's not good or bad. It simply says you're out of your comfort zone. Fear is an indicator that you've stepped out of your comfort zone. So the fear is okay. Actually, I'd say, hey, if you feel afraid, that's really cool. We're on to something. Now, what do we need in the face of fear?
Yeah. We
need courage. Yeah. Because courage is recognizing that I'm afraid and still moving forward. Right? So what we want to do is encourage people to feel it and then talk about what's it going to take to be courageous. What would courage look like in the face of this current reality? What would it look like to be courageous? What would it take?
So for the majority of this, for our audience today, the fear is that it's already happened. They've got fired. They've lost their job, cut off because of COVID or whatever all the words are. And now the fear is, how do I get out of this space into, something that's going to be meaningful, and i.e. create direct deposit to resolve some of my challenges. Right. And I like what you just said, Rich, you accept the fear, and which is a part of courage, and then go do the actions you need to do to get you there.
Right. And another word of caution for us is that as humans, we love formulas, right? We love formulas. Just tell me the 5 steps and I'll do them. And we're going to talk about some things that might sound formulaic. We got to be careful of that because everyone's journey is unique. So I also got to be careful. Like here's a phrase that I don't use anymore, which is, so I've been fired. So Randy said, hey, if you, in today's world, if you're not, haven't been fired or let go or furloughed or whatever the labels, you haven't been working long enough. This is not our dad's and our mom's work world where 45 years was common. So if someone's got fired, I want to be really cautious. Say, I know exactly how you feel. No, I don't. No, I don't. I know how I feel. I know what it feels like for me to be fired. I don't know what it feels like for you to be fired. So I want to be careful. So here's some things I've found, or here's some potential actions you might consider. You know, they've got to figure it out on their own. We can provide some support, some insight, some encouragement, but it really is a unique journey from here, a journey of transition from here to there.
You know, in your case, Rich, you've made the transition to entrepreneurship and kind of striking out on your own. And many people, not only is there the fear, but they have no idea what they want to do. I mean, they've been a corporate cubicle dwelling slug their entire life. All right. How's that for a term, Teddy? You like that? Cubicle dwelling slug.
Rich, did we not talk about this earlier today?
We pray about this, Randy. We pray about this. Actually, that's a really cool phrase. Cubicle.
But the point is, you know, you bury your head, you do your work, you're not tooting your own horn. You're a good soldier. You do what you're doing, and striking out on my own to go start a company and all that, not only would terrify me, I just don't want to do it. I have no interest in it, no passion for that. So for the people watching that say, hey man, that's great for you, but that's not for me. And what if we just want to focus more on the corporate cubicle dwelling individual contributor within an organization? You prefer that phrase, Teddy? You like that one?
I like that, buddy.
What about for those folks that say, I don't want to be another chief enthusiasm officer for my own company. I just want a job in a company where I can feel valued. What are there parallels or differences that you can point out in that journey?
Absolutely, because it's the journey to that end place, to that ideal place. And a couple of things on that. One is our human condition. You know, we're unique as humans. We're also alike as humans. And here's one thing. The longer we do a certain job, and this happened to me in my first career, the longer you do a certain job, the more it is that we think that's the job we can do. You know, we become very laser-like. And I used to drive, if I had family, I grew up in New Jersey, I'd drive up to New Jersey to see family, and I would go through small towns of Virginia. I'd wonder, what would I do here? Because I was thinking I only do one thing. What I forgot about myself is I have most of our skills are transferable. They're not industry specific. So one question is, did you love your work? If you loved your work, like, is there another way you can do that? Or if you didn't love your work, if you're honest with yourself and you felt like you were oppressed and repressed and not being utilized, and you have transferable skills that are not industry specific. So open your minds up for that. And the second part of that, Randy, is I got a good buddy of mine from way back, and we got fired near the same time. And I was an entrepreneur, and I continued along that path. That's my wiring. He dabbled in entrepreneurship and then said to me one day, Rich, you know what? I'm good in corporate settings. I know how to succeed in a corporate setting. I'm going to go get a job. Right. And I said, Joey, that sounds, what a cool revelation that you now are more clear that the corporate culture is where you're best used. And so he did do that, and he does do that now. So it's not about, you know, doing what someone else is doing. It's about figuring out, wrestling with what Khalil Gibran said, what's the workplace within your heart, and be about that.
Another point, Teddy, is there anything in the chat?
I mean, we got we got a lot of people who are reflecting on what you're sharing, and Greg's like, the magic happens outside your comfort zone. I get that. There's a quote, Rich, you may know it better than I do. There's a quote about comfort and growth. I can't remember exactly what it is. You know, the growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone, and there's nothing comfortable about growing.
Oh, I remember my oldest daughter when she was, I don't know, 8 years old, and she was probably younger than that because she was laying down from a nap. And she grabbed her legs and started wailing. And she's like, my legs hurt. I was like, it dawned. I was like, the growing pains, literal physical pains from bone stretching. Well, the phrase works. When we have to stretch emotionally, physically, intellectually, spiritually, it is painful, which is why we need time to rest. We actually need some time to go back in our comfort zone and catch our breath. If, athletes know that after after exorbitant effort, you have to have a recovery. You got to put ice on your muscles and your joints. So it's the balance of stretch and work, catch your breath. Yeah. Stretch and work, catch your breath. But it is painful in the most beautiful way.
Yeah. And your comfort zone may not always be where it was.
We hope not. Yeah.
It'll keep being a little bit better. We're up here with the pain and we drop back to a new comfort level. Yeah.
It's helpful to remind ourselves that there was another time. If we could look back to 5-10 years, we weren't good at what we were doing. And so this is a circular journey. It's not linear, right? It's circular all over the place. Yeah. So yeah, we've done this before. It's not fun. It's meaningful, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking through some of the talking points, Rich, that you had shared before we came on. So we've talked about thanks for the push, where that came from. We talked about the why for what you do. Another one you mentioned was, how do you see that relating to where we are today? And by that, I assume you mean in light of COVID, the economy crashing, a lot of us are out of a job. Anything you'd like to add on that second point?
Yeah. So in 2002, that was I would call it a micro event. In other words, it happened to me. I mean, there was other people who got fired in 2002, but it was a micro event. It happened to me. I reached out to different people, figured out a path, right? What we experienced in 2020 was a macro event. The entire globe got pushed, right? In unique ways, we were all affected. That's important, right? Because we were not all affected the same way. In unique ways, we were all affected. We all got pushed. I mean, we going a year ago, we were headed into a predictable, good year. 100% of our work, 99% of our work was with clients, face-to-face, shared space learning and development. The other 1% was phone call coaching. We had never conducted a virtual event, never done a webinar, nothing. I was opposed to them. That's not what we do. Our biggest, we make an impact by shared space growth experiences with our clients. We connect, we engage them. Well, guess what? We do virtual events now. Individually, again, in the micro, our company, behind my shoulder on the wall says create. This was 2020 was our most creative year we've ever had. We created from a brand new podcast. We created virtual workshops. We do virtual coaching. We've been we're producing. We have now a studio in our office. All of that came from the push. It wasn't fun. Thank goodness for PPP and savings funds, so you can make payroll. It wasn't fun at all. It was magical. So the question is, how are we individually and collectively going to be able to say, and again, so some people might not be saying thanks for the push yet. We're already saying thanks. We could see thanks for the push. I could see mid-year. I was like, wow, thanks for the push. This podcast never would have been created if it wasn't for the pandemic. So other people, it might be another year or so before they can say thanks for the push.
And that's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's nearly 12:30. You're live. Rich, 50,000 people are tuned in to this
51. I saw 51,000.
51,000. And by the way, another milestone.
Yep.
Another milestone. Thank you to everyone who's registered. Thank you to everyone who showed up. Thank you to everyone who shared this event. We've now hit 300. Now, I'm not going to use Teddy math. We've now hit 300 registered attendees who want to show up. And so we're grateful for everyone who's registered. And we're grateful for all the fabulous attendees or participants that are on here today. today, me and my buddy Randy Wooden are having a conversation titled "Thank You for the Push" with our good friend Mr. Rich Schlentz, and it's a great conversation. And we're so Randy, keep us going, buddy. And I'll read what Jessica's saying. Jessica's my sister from another mother, from another spelling, but I'll tell you what she's talking about here in a minute.
Here you go. Yeah, and I wondered that same thing. I thought, wait a minute, she doesn't know how to spell her last name. Do I need to step in and correct that? I thought, well, I'll just let that alone. So I asked her, and she goes, no, it's different, I guess. So, all right. So we're back in this whole thing about COVID hit us, and it just shook the board game. Is like taking Scrabble and flipping it upside down. Next thing you know, it's a mess. It's a mess. And we were all going through the mess at pretty much all the same time. Most industries were impacted in some way, some more maybe than others. So how do we make the most, and what do we learn from that? And again, it's an evolving process because we're stuck in this for a while.
Right. So again, without being overly formulaic, here's a couple steps as I reflected back on my 2002 experience and would look for lessons and learnings to pull out to bring forward to help navigate this transition, right? From pushed to thanks for the push from tragedy to gratitude, let's say. First step, one thing is to be kind. And I mean that, be kind to ourselves. Transitions are difficult. Call that out. Wow, this is difficult. And resist the tendency to be in a rush. So in 2020, we had an unusual number of conversations with clients who were furloughed or fired, or contacts who have been fired. So in most cases, our recommendation was these three things. First, be kind to yourself and take a breath. Again, you have now what you didn't have a week ago, and that's some space and time. There probably was a time over the last 10 years, 20 years that you said to yourself, if I had more time, I would. Finish that sentence for me. All right, let's talk about that. So at the same time, again, let's be real. All right, there is an idea of budgeting and bills and cash flow that needs to be considered. Generally, it's not an immediate need. There's some space that can be leveraged. So in that space, think, read, breathe, walk. What do you want to do next? What do you love doing? What's the thing if you could do and not get, do for free? What would that be? So exploring those ideas. Again, validate your feelings. Do not suppress the fact that it's difficult or challenging. I'd say invest in yourself. And this is one of those ideas that we say makes no sense, makes perfect sense, right? Like when I had my 2 job opportunities lined up, that makes perfect sense. It has all the things you need, the salary, the benefits, the tech package. It's like, no, this actually makes perfect sense because this is where I need to be doing. So if you can invest in yourself during this time, if it's a space you're uncomfortable with, called transition from career transition, then why not get some help? Why not get some professional development regarding interviewing and resumes and LinkedIn marketing, right? Personal brand marketing, things like that. And finally, under be kind to yourself, think about the people you hang out with. Find out some people, hang with some people who are encouraging, who are positive, who are optimistic. So consider, it's like the oxygen mask, right? When you're that professional, if the oxygen mask should descend from the overhead compartment, does not tell you to put it on the person next to you. This is not a time to give other people oxygen. This is a time to get your oxygen, because we know that if you do that, then you'll be better off for others. So 1, be kind to yourself, invest in yourself, take some space for yourself. See the trend there? There's a theme there. Yeah. Yourself. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm saying being wise with yourself.
Yeah.
Second is be true. So be kind, be true. Be true is really take stock in your core values. I was speaking to a company 6 years ago that was shutting down in the Triad, and this was a profitable plant, but the mothership in another state was shutting them down. Didn't matter whether they were successful or not. And 600 employees were going to, and some of them were generational employees, were going to lose their jobs. And one of the leaders who I was working with as they were guiding their team to this ultimate transition, this destination, this terminal destination of closing. He said, my friends and family they get on me. They're like, why are you working so hard? Why do you care so much? 6 more weeks and you're out of there. His response was memorable. I told him, because that's who I am. I work hard and I care. And this situation, this circumstance is not going to change my core essence. It's powerful. Yeah. So, he knew who he was. So stay true to yourself during this time. Take stock. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you believe deeply in? What are the core values that are unshakable, unmovable, and unnegotiable for you during this time? All right, and that's gives us a little anchor in a place that seems to be unstable.
Yeah, I look at that, Rich, and say, I'm with you 100%. I'm Teddy Burriss 24/7. This is what I bring to the table every day. And I try hard to never let it waver because of the environment around me, or because of what's going on, or because of the people that are with me. I think of that as that if you were to try to pretend to be someone else, to accept some reality that you never wanted to accept before, do things a different way that you never would, I think that's disrespectful to the self.
Yeah, nice tie-in. Again, this is really a self-focused time, which we don't have much of anymore. So yeah, it's making sure that we know what are the pillars we stand on, what are the unshakable pieces of me that are never up for sale, or never up for negotiation. That's important.
Randy?
For those that are watching that are employed and are not in imminent danger of losing their job, I mean, all this may sound all well and good, and you take it in, you go, oh, gee, that guy makes some sense, and that's all well and good. So maybe a thought, I'll just throw it out, and if you want to elaborate on it a little bit. Years ago, I was watching a preacher talking about cushions in life, and time cushions. For example, if you're late to work and you're riding the guy's bumper and you hit all the red lights, and you just, there's no cushion there. Same thing for money. If we have some money set aside, that gives us the cushion. And so maybe right now you're stuck in the middle of hell at this point, trying to figure out, where am I going to go? How am I going to eat? And all that kind of stuff. But if you are employed, to the best of your ability, and I've been guilty of this with money in the past, and lessons learned, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Try to create some cushion, some space, to give yourself that time, the space that you talk about, so that you can think with a clear head and not have that fear of losing your home, losing your whatever. Right. Money and time are things that you can't get time back. Money you can earn back. But try to be proactive. And if either of you guys want to elaborate on that and the value of that peace of mind of having those cushions.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I'll share with you, Randy, that and when I made my transition from corporate America to become, this supreme leader of this fabulous organization I run. Yeah, right. I made very deliberate decisions about my time and my money to do this. I couldn't go from making decent money to zero income unless I prepared. And so, and part of the prepare, I was fortunate that I was making the decision. I wasn't getting fired. So I had that piece of it that I had time to be able to prepare. But even after that, I prepared. And most importantly, I focused on my expenditure of time and my expenditure of money, knowing that I had to use them appropriately to get me to where I want to go. Rich, another perspective?
A lot of wisdom there, having living within our means, just fundamental stuff. It doesn't go out of style. There's a lot of wisdom in having some cushion so that, to Randy's point, we have the space, we can fund some transition time. Rebound. We talk about it in relationships. Be careful about the rebound. If you break up or you get divorced, of course, you often, it's hurtful. That's a thanks. Well, it's not, it might not be free. Anyway, that's hurtful. Yeah. And so, but if we feel like, okay, now we have to find someone else, then anyone is the right one. And mostly they're the wrong one. Right. So if I have to get another job, I'm going to take the first one that shows up, and that might not be the work that's placed within my heart. So we want,
Be a mistake.
ideally, and if you're in a job right now and you're, it's not your place, or it's good and it could get better, these principles still work. Well, how can I leverage myself? How can Malcolm McDougall knows, how can I make sure my strengths shine in this organization? How can I contribute my best and highest and also get the most meaning out of that? So wherever we are, we want to be in a place where it's fulfilling, it's meaningful, it's connected to important outcomes and results.
On LinkedIn, Lucy Wellmaker just said, "Wow." Yeah, and we know. I mean, if you all don't know who Lucy Wellmaker is, she's been on the show. She's when she says "wow," she means it. Hey, Randy, I'm gonna go back to Jessica unless you have something that you want to do first.
Well, I've got an eye on the clock, so it's 20 till, and I know Rich was going to ask us, the two of us, about our pandemic push that we'd faced. So I don't know if, and also about, is it easier to be naturally more optimistic than perhaps for other people? So do we want to cover all of that, or no? We just need to kind of look at our timing. Yeah.
You guys choose. You can either probably one or the other. So you can share your thanks for the push moment as you look back. What was the thing that was difficult and challenging that now you're grateful for? Or we could talk a little bit about this idea of this. Sometimes it's like, this is a little hokey. It sounds like you got to be Mr. Positive, or what you decide.
Well, let's play with that question, because we don't want to make that question about what was the push. Rich, you tee it up to not only us, but also to the audience, would you?
Yeah, the audience. So again, so we had this global push in 2020. It's still going on in many cases. Looking back, what was a lesson or an experience that you'd say, there was a blessing in there, in all of the uncertainty and all of the pain, all of the chaos? Wow, there was a blessing that I took out. I'm thankful for that. Thank you for the push. Thank you, pandemic, for what showed up for me. Give us an idea, either those of you online. What was that for you, or Teddy and Randy?
Teddy, I've got one. If I've got one or two briefly, if you want to.
Go ahead, buddy. And again, I'd love for the audience to drop in the chat. What was the push the pandemic provided to you that you're grateful for, or at least beginning to be grateful for? How's that?
Well said.
Yeah, and I've been employed straight through, so I did not lose my job. And you stole my thunder without realizing it, Rich. So shame on you. You got to make the host look good, but it takes a lot of work to make us look good. Let me tell you. But you mentioned about your business and how this whole thought of going virtual, that's not how we do things. And we do face-to-face, and this is our business model. This is how we're effective. We're the same way. I mean, whether it's doing my LinkedIn workshops or interviewing or dealing with interview prep or working with clients, all of that was done in person. 95% of it was done in person. And suddenly it doesn't happen anymore. And so the fact that we're able to still make an impact through different communication means, I think that was an eye opener. And frankly, this show has been an eye opener and a blessing too. I mean, I've known Teddy forever because he's old like I am. And
but I use oil of Olay and you don't.
That's true. Yeah. See what happens. You work with this guy and just this, I mean, it's just stressful as all get out. But here again, we got sent home, and within a week or so, we're on the phone with each other saying, "Hey, dude, let's figure something out and let's have some fun here." And so we started, and now we're 40 shows into it, and we haven't ended, and there's no end in sight. So those are a couple things that I think just have kind of hit us and said, "Hey, wow, we can do this." It wasn't what we set out to do a year ago. Nobody necessarily saw that coming, but I think that taking what we have and making the best of it, and simply it's the difference between driving a Fiat and a Dodge or whatever. I guess they're the same company now, but it's still a car. And the mode of that transportation may be different and how we get communicated, but we haven't lost our essence and the value that we can bring to others. Now we just do it through a different channel of communication.
Yeah, I'm with you, Randy. I had no idea that we'd be hanging out, on the front side of an anniversary of the show, 12 weeks out, buddy. And I'm blessed for that. I mean, I have a lot of fun. You and I talk about this often. We bring these freaking fabulous, Rich, I said it, but I said it in a positive way. We bring these fabulous special guests to the show. And you and I talk about this all the time. Every single time we get together with our special guests, we learn something.
Yep.
It's always rewarding for us. And to me, that's a huge blessing. I'll share with you one other thing that's, what gift has 2020 provided to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's way easier for me to publicly state that I'm blessed.
Huh. Tell me more.
Well, it used to be, I didn't want to peel back all the layers of Teddy. I wanted to be a little bit of a mystery, but I'm like, why? Why does it need to be a mystery? I mean, I'm a human. I have feelings like everybody else, and life impacts me in lots of the same way life impacts everybody else. And I think it's important not only for me to be able to say out loud where I am blessed. And I'm healthy. I'm able to get by and pay my bills and do the things I need to do and keep growing my business. I've got lots of personal blessings across 40 almost 43 years of wearing that ring. 12 grand wee wops and 4 daughters, all of that. And I'm like, why do I hide it? And so where relevant and appropriate, I think it's important to let people know how you feel. And I think that the pandemic has helped me realize, not only the pandemic, 2020 as a whole has helped me realize that, when being honest about your feelings where relevant and appropriate is something that I should do more of. So, hey, here's some of the folks dropped in. Malcolm says, virtual communication has been not only acceptable, but we can reach more people and it continues to improve. Steve Miller made me more aware of other people and how much they want to help you.
Wow.
And Sarah, your partner, spending more time with the Lord in prayer. And I get that. I'm with you. And let's see who else. Candace, she's not lost her job, but it's still the COVID is still surging. And she's more focused on writing fiction and other creative pursuits. Kudos, Candace. Go for the creativity. So good stuff. Really good stuff. Rich, I'm going to come back to Randy. If you don't mind, I think we've got a few minutes. I can pull this off in one or 2 minutes. Jessica says, I've got this package called Jessica. It was in this industry. It thrived in this industry. The push was she got pushed out of that industry. And I'm paraphrasing Jessica, how does she present that package known as Jessica with all her skills? What's one tip that she can present the package known as Jessica with all the skills into a whole nother industry? Thought, Rich, 1 point?
Yeah, and it goes into our trap. We become our industry, and that's an illusion. So Jessica has skills and talents that are not industry specific. They do create results, right? Some kind of results, whether it's a team that achieves certain goals, or whether it's improving sales or cutting costs, whatever the outcome is. Jessica, you've got skills and abilities that do that. Every organization across industries need those things done, whether again it's leadership or specific outcomes about productivity, profitability, quality, innovation. So what are those things that are uniquely you that go wherever you go, and how do they create tangible outcomes within the business community as a whole? Identify those, and someone's looking for you.
Package up the most important skills you have and put those on your banner. Yeah. Randy, back at you, buddy.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Ted, you were just saying, and just another thought I had about this whole COVID and sort of the push and such. And part of that, and I shared this on social media, and I think we've shared it in past weeks, And when you see in the news, you see our healthcare workers and some of the things that they're going through, and the what we call the essential workers,
Mm.
and all of the turmoil that goes on. And again, I don't want to delve into the politics and all of that piece of it, but I think we've all seen, and if we haven't felt the empathy and the compassion for people and the suffering. So a lot of these people with COVID, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's mind blowing. And I think along with the same lines from a business standpoint, we've we've developed a little bit more patience and understanding because we're all going through this for the first time. How many times have you said, "You're muted, you're muted, you're muted"? I mean, I still do it every day. And but we have understanding, whereas maybe a year ago we didn't have that level of compassion, patience, understanding, and perhaps even empathy when we turn on the news or read the newspaper. So I think those are personal qualities that I can sense that I guess I hate to say developed, but maybe just recognized more and paid more attention to. So we're getting down to the end. We've got about 8-9 minutes left. Teddy, you wanted to share something, and then we'll have Rich go ahead and kind of wrap things up.
No, Rich asked me what my gift was. My gift was I decided to peel back more layers where relevant and appropriate. I always got to throw that relevant and appropriate in there. Otherwise it becomes TMI, and Randy calls me out on that.
Are you wearing any pants today, Teddy? I guess
None of your business, dude. None of your business.
Well, watch any mirrors that might be in the back there, so in case anybody sees it.
Fully dressed, buddy.
Awesome. Hey, Rich, we're going to get short on time here. If you want to touch on the optimism piece briefly, are some people just more naturally optimistic than others? Is there any science behind that, or is that just something, we're Pollyanna and it'll get better and just, have a nice day?
The answer falls into the nature nurture, right? Nature nurture, wiring, influence. Interesting. My youngest daughter got a label in high school. Like the label was, "You're just like your dad." You're just like your dad. Interesting thing was she's adopted. She did a study, her senior year in high school study on nature nurture, twin studies, and found out that the answer is yes. We're influenced by our DNA and by our by our environment. And what she presented was that the influence is as powerful, if not powerful, than your DNA. So yeah, we have probably a wiring that says how optimistic we want to be, or that we are naturally, what the lens in which we see the world. And then we have influence. It could be media, it could be family of origin. It's all those things, right? So here's, go to a TED Talk, Google the happy secret to better work. Google the happy secret to better work. Sean Accord is a research psychologist. It's a 12-minute talk that's funny and insightful about how you can actually impact the way in which you see the world to be more optimistic. And if you're more optimistic, then you're more innovative, you're more successful, you have better outcomes. So yes and yes, I probably showed up into the world pretty optimistic, and I have added to that over the years, so that it is my natural way to see circumstances, is what's the opportunity here.
I'm with you. All right, take a couple, 3-4 minutes, if you would, and wrap this up for us, Rich. What are some takeaways you'd like our audience to have?
Well, I mentioned wrap it up and then also provide some resources. The takeaway is this: it's going to get all of us, right? Even though I mentioned I tend to be bent towards optimism, when I got fired, it hurt. It did not feel good. I did not walk out and say, "Woo, thanks for the push." I walked out and said, "What on earth am I going to tell my daughters?" I got to go home and say, "Your dad got fired." And that's the word I used. I didn't use layoff, I used the word that hurt the most. So it's going to happen. It's going to hurt. The question is, what are we going to do then? What's the transition plan? And that is to be kind to yourself, then be kind to yourself, be true to yourself, and then be open for opportunities that may be or should be outside of your history, your industry history. What is it? This might be the opportunity to do the work that you always wanted to do, but you were afraid to do. And somewhere along the line, it might be 1 year, it might be 10 years. Mm-hmm. Be open to relabeling that experience from tragic to grateful. One of the challenges of these type of events is when they're over, and it's getting ready to be over soon. So, and that, what I mean by that is, how do we keep a spark? So we, Extraordinary Communication, want to offer some resources to the viewers, and those resources, at least 2 of them. One is a weekly, very short, inspirational blog. It's designed to inspire and be thought evoking. If you want to read that, about a minute a week, and you want to receive our weekly podcast, then go to your phone now and text REVIVE, REVIVE, the word revive, to 33777. Right? So the number is 33777, and text REVIVE, and you'll be a subscriber, and you'll get regular inspirational information that will refresh and reinforce our session from today. And or go to our website and contact us. Just send us an email that you want to talk about something, or you have an idea or whatever. We will reply and we will connect with you. Cool. So,
and I'll drop all that into the chat, and I'll drop it all on the YouTube video to share it out as well. So
thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, I've got a quick story, and then Teddy, you've got one, and you can wrap us up.
I got my guest.
And we'll talk about our guest for next week. You mentioned the word fired, Rich. And looking back on and I worked in radio, and so really, if you work in radio, you know you're going to get fired. I even got fired from a part-time radio job. So whatever. But I do remember our kids were young. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago on one of our shows, but I was working in radio and had desired to make a change. And again, it's a longer story, but the short of it was they found out I was looking and ultimately found my replacement before I found my next opportunity. And so it was Halloween in Ohio. And here I show up back at home when I should be on air. And went to the babysitters and picked up my sons. And of course, then my wife came home from work and sort of like, well, why are you here? And I said, well, I got fired. And you know, being the primary earner and having 2 young sons and losing your job, and really I wanted to leave. So I didn't want to stay in radio. I wanted to transition. I was working on that process, but I didn't know when or where it was going to end. And so it was very terrifying for a while. And to your point, you know, you're a tough guy and you can handle it and you internalize it all. But it hurt because it hurt my pride that somebody chose to fire me. And it was not because of lack of work duty. It was just because they knew I was disloyal since I was going to leave. But it's a long journey, and one thing leads to another, and I could go on forever. So I'll leave it at that. But your point is well taken. That firing hurt. It hurt my pride. It made me a bit angry. It was a bit of a relief because it was very stressful those last couple 3. I knew it was going to happen at some point. It wasn't unexpected, but it did happen. So I'll leave it at that. Just know that life's a journey, and we all have these severe bumps in the road, and how we respond to those. I think that resilience can last a lifetime, really. And that's how we move through life. Teddy, take it home.
Yeah. Michelle, thanks for dropping in the chat, because she's feeding into one of my things. Look, I'm going to drop in just a few quick little points, almost one-worders. Look, be grateful and seek, or maybe seek, the push. Look for the push. Be open for the push. Be willing to be pushed. This is how we're going to grow, and grow creates even greater happiness as long as the push, as long as we take the push and do the best we can with the situations that's handed to us. And along the lines of what Michelle just said, she used the word positive. Get into conversations and always be positive. It may hurt, may be troublesome to do that. Keep the pain in the car when you're having conversations with people, and then you can go back to the pain afterwards, and you can, pay attention to it and understand it, so you can work with that pain. Use your networks. Again, Michelle referred to that. Use your networks. Ask people for conversations and introductions so that you can benefit from that push. Look for ideas. You do not need to go back to being accounts payable A through L. I know this lady. You can go do something different. And Randy, it's not going to be accounts payable M through Z. You can go do something different, but you've got to look for this. And the way you're going to find this is through conversations with people eagerly looking for ideas and opportunities that you've never imagined in your life. Our guest for next week, this is going to be another really cool one. It's a lady by the name of Tracy Winter. Tracy is bringing a conversation. Listen to this, folks. The conversation is called Communicating as a Nerd. It's going to be a really good conversation for technical people and for people who are communicating in a specific style and need to figure out how to do it differently. Rich, buddy, thanks a lot for showing up. Appreciate it. We're grateful.
Thank you, guys. Grateful.
Randy, it's an honor and a privilege hanging out with you on Wednesdays. By the way, where's my paycheck? Oh, ain't happening. Everybody have a good week.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.